So we'll call the meeting to order. The Economic Development Committee, Wednesday, July 19th, 7 p.m. First order of business, we'll do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Appreciate everybody coming on a nice July summer night. This should be a rather quick meeting, all right? So the first thing that we'll do is I'm going to take things a little out of order. Let's go through the minutes of June 21st. I don't know if anyone had a chance to review them. Marcia, from the original draft, you had the grant was a $1,200 grant.
Yeah.
It was actually $12,000, so I just fixed that.
Oh, thank you.
But I thought you captured the essence, especially of the public hearing side, pretty good. So unless anybody has any questions, do I get a motion to accept the minutes of June 21st?
I'll make that motion.
All right. Todd has made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
EJ second it. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. All right. So what I will do now is we're going to continue the public hearing for the 5-year economic development plan. It's kind of an ongoing public hearing. One thing I wanted to mention, at the last joint meeting we had, Selectman Paul Joseph had mentioned about infrastructure along West Dudley. And I've been driving around trying to see really where's the inventory of land that we had and what's on it and what's available. Mm-hmm. And I don't see it in West Dudley. I've got
More residential.
yeah, and my thinking is, right, you've got the Quinnebog River, which, right, everyone's worried about protecting waterways. And at one time it was very polluted and it's come back nicely. You've got Zajak's farm on the one side of the rail trail there, which hearsay could be an amazing water source for someday in the future. And that whole stretch from Southbridge into Connecticut, I mean, you've got, you know, a handful of minor businesses, but it's primarily residential. And then as far as availability of land, there are no large tracts. And so I guess for the public hearing, you know, my point of view is, I think, you know, I had a great conversation with Mark Ruggieri over at Webco. I wanted to thank him for sponsoring the brochure and then just talk to him in general. Top-notch individual. Mm-hmm. They recently went through an expansion. Mm-hmm. Some of the things that the town did right is they took the bull by the horns, the permits, the fast tracking, making sure, you know, everything was there so that they could get it done quickly. One of the biggest hang-ups they had was on the fire suppression side, water. So they actually had to put in a pod to supply their sprinklers and stuff, you know, just in case there's a fire. And then, so I look at him and their business continues to grow. I think they are the second largest taxpayer in Dudley, Webco. And, you know, you look right up the road and you've got Nichols, right? And Nichols is uphill, Webco downhill. I think if we talk about infrastructure, I think that area needs to be looked at very closely for at least water lines and water sources from the top down. That goes back to that old Corbin Road piece, the one that blew out all the equipment, because, I mean, looking back in retrospect, you know, maybe the town will revisit it, but that's what they need up there. They need a water source that has the quantities that Corbin Road piece had, and then goes downhill by gravity right through Nichols, right to Webco.
Yep.
Right? Now sewerage, on the other hand, you're gonna have to pump uphill, right? And so when you look on West Main Street, right, for development, really, once you hit that Dunkin' Donuts, it's all downhill, literally, from there. I mean, you've got Yummies and you've got Webco at the bottom. But if you can supply Webco and Nichols with water, you know, municipal lines for somewhere up to that topography, and then really concentrate on your existing water sewer to Dunkin' Donuts and continue to improve that line along Main Street. And then I'm driving around, and again, it jumps out at me, Lower Schofield. You know, you've got Henke Sass is doing an expansion there now. You've got all that wide open space, industrial, clean commercial, like office buildings.
And flat land. Yeah.
Flat land. You've got infrastructure running down some of it already. And so when I think of 5 years, I think West Dudley, you know, maybe, in my opinion, might be something nice in the future, but something that's real in 5 years, to me, is water line through Nichols down to Webco. Make sure your infrastructure on West Main is upgraded to support growth, and especially if the mill, if there's a renovation or something that occurs at that mill, and then Lower Schofield. And the other thing Lower Schofield has is access to transportation, right? You can hit 395 through Connecticut or through Webster. You don't have to go through Webster to get there. And West Dudley, there's just no straight.
And there's a big break between commercial on Test Hill, Route 197, because most of that land is protected.
That's right. Dudley Conservation Land Trust just got a large donation off that.
And it is elevated and it is ledgy, so it, you know, it's really not that developable anyway. But it is on both sides there's land protected. So there's a big gap between commercial and development.
You know?
Now, when you say water from Nichols down to like Webco, you're thinking down Center Road or down West Main Street?
I would say I would go right down. So the Corbin Road area where they had drilled that test well. I mean, it was such an abundance of water.
Yes, it
There's
was.
got to be water there, and it's easier to move that water through gravity downhill through just a straight pipe.
Okay.
I mean, you can go right down Ramshorn, right? I mean, it's, what are you talking, a half a mile from Nichols?
And that,
Go right down
and
Dresser Hill.
that water source was mentioned in the master plan.
Yeah. So I think I'm gonna see if I can get us on one of the water sewer meetings and understand what their 5 or 10 year plan is.
Or invite them in?
Yeah. I'd love to, what I'll do is I'll invite them in, and if I don't think that'll happen, I'll see if we can get on theirs. But, you know, they've got to have the expertise, right? They've got to know where they've drilled and where their search parameters are, and what is their 5, 10 year plan. I'd love to get a copy of it and so that we can incorporate it and have Central Mass Regional Planning look at it as well. And I think the one thing that Central Mass Regional Planning will allow us to look at is visually, what is the acreage available for development along West Dudley, right, along West Main Street, along Oxford Ave and Lower Schofield, and actually quantify it into acreage. So, but I mean, it was just kind of, I mean, he was, you know, I'll talk to, you know, Paul a little bit more about it, you know, but so insistent on that West Dudley, and I just driving, I don't see it.
No, that's been in his mind for a while. I've done similar what you have, driving around, looking at the entries to the town. Dudley Oxford Road, where IPG, is that?
Yeah.
No, that's Oxford Ave, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah. The side of the road where their headquarters, that really dwindles down as it comes to Dudley because of the river. And there's not a lot of land on that side as well.
Yeah.
But on the other side, I think we need to look again at that zoning.
Yeah. And I like the idea that at the public hearing, when they talked about being creative with maybe just doing some overlay districts.
Yes.
You know, that way you can kind of
Yep.
have what has, but if you have an opportunity like that, the rules are laid out very clearly on what can and cannot go and can be fast-tracked. And
guy's had a lot of experience on the planning board and in the town where he works now.
So those are my thoughts on the last public hearing and follow-up. I mean, anybody else want to add some stuff for the record on the public, because we are in the public hearing right now. We'll start with Marcia.
One of the things that really struck out to me, being on the planning board and this board and not recognizing or noticing, was the fact that we used separate engineering companies for each board. I was not aware of that. It just probably went by me. But to synchronize that, and I guess the bills, the amounts of money, the budget was compared between, paying each individual one and perhaps hiring a part-time engineer firm for the town. I think that's something we need to look at again.
Yeah, that's why I was very pleased you captured that in the minutes too, because, at the end of the whole public hearing process, what we'll probably do is come up with a summary. Make sure that Central Mass Regional Planning gets that prior to their report. And then once they produce their report, I'm sure, nice winter project when it's nice and cold. It's hard to envision that now at 90 degrees, but, but we'll be able to kind of really go over some of that stuff. Is there anything else? I mean, when you think about economic development and some of the opportunities, anything else jump out at you or you've been thinking about over the past couple of days or weeks?
I mean, I remember, I'm sorry, during the last meeting, you had brought up a couple of different things in regards to, keeping a sense of Dudley's identity being agricultural. I believe you mentioned, John, farmers being able to use their land for things like growing hops, the medicinal marijuana industry that's upon us now, or I thought that was very, very interesting, and I don't know how we can, further that, and because with the, I know working at Hometown Bank that there are a lot of requests coming in, and you see like breweries, down at Charlton that just opened up, had a big facility put there, and just utilizing the local farms and all that other stuff. I just would think we should look further at how we can sit down with the local, like the big landowners, the farm owners. I'm sure folks that have lived here for a long time maybe know the family names and I'm not really familiar with that. I've only been a resident for 8 years. Besides that, something that you just brought up regarding Webco, this is a company that's been around for, I believe, a number of years, but correct me if I'm wrong, what you're saying is down in that area of Dudley, if a company is going to relocate down there, or a company, they don't have access to sewer and water. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it's not even if a company wants to relocate there, right? It's just like, in business, right? You got to take care of your existing customers, and then you prospect new customers.
Right.
We have two of our largest customers that are a mile from each other.
Right.
You got Nichols
Yeah.
and Webco.
Right.
We need to make sure that they have everything they need
Sure.
to continue to grow and expand.
Right.
And if we can get new prospects based upon what we do for them, that's
Right.
great. So this is almost a retention issue.
Right.
That in my mind, where Schofield and that other area is new business.
Gotcha. Okay. And Schofield and that area down near Henke Sass does not have that problem in regards to.
There's infrastructure. I don't know where exactly it ends. If the water sewer are in line with each other,
Okay.
I know I drive by. You see that pump station there, so you know that there's water coming from over there. So what is the line there, both water and sewer? What is the capacity? And let's just say we could get another 3 or 4 Henke Sasses there. Can it be supported? Or what do we
Right.
need?
Exactly. And like Marcia, you had mentioned IPG. And I don't know the history behind that, but I know I've had I've been fortunate enough to meet a couple of folks that were involved with getting them where they needed to be there and helping with the construction of that building. And the biggest thing that I heard after walking out of that meeting was that, they're looking for a place that really is going to work with them, and maybe Oxford at that time was a little bit more helpful. And maybe it also had to do with things like you say, their access to water, their access to other different, infrastructure. But I think, can we as a group, whether it be jointly with other departments, like you had just mentioned, John, sit down and kind of reassess, these areas and say, okay, how do we take care of our existing customers, like you said, like the Webcos and the Nichols colleges, and then, okay, let's target some areas and say, okay, listen, how do we get in front of these like big builders, commercial building companies that are out there that are basically in the landowners that own the land that are going out trying to bring in these companies saying, hey, listen, I know somebody that needs to relocate, or maybe IPG because they're growing so much, and I know they're doing a huge new addition right there, but maybe another company or a similar thing needs another location, and we can say, hey, listen, we've already got this planned out, we've got these areas that would be perfect for you, let's sit down and talk. I mean, at some point, can we sit down and kind of figure that whole thing out?
Yeah.
I mean, I know it sounds kind of pretty...
Yeah, so one of the deliverables for Central Mass Regional Planning is to show us what our infrastructure is, what the capacity is, right? What land
Right,
availability there are, kind of summarize all that. But I think really sitting down with that Water and Sewer Commission
Okay.
and understanding what's there and what do they plan on improving.
Right, okay.
And then if there's a gap, first thing is to get everybody on the same page as far as, okay, yeah, we want to develop this area. And if then there's a funding gap, which there probably will be,
How can we get the funding?
then we go after the state
State.
and grants.
Okay.
This works.
Yeah, exactly.
That's who did the Nichols improvements.
Mass Works, yeah.
And who do we, reach out for that? Our state representatives?
We'll talk to like Senator Fatman and Representative Durant. Maybe you have them come to one of our meetings.
Yeah.
I think after the plan is actually formulated, it might be a good, where they can begin to put his, because I think they start working on the budgetary items around January, February too, for the following year into it. It was interesting though, you had also mentioned the agricultural, the APR of the crops. I did have an opportunity, I did talk to Jim Kepke, who owns one of the largest farms. And I asked him, what would it take for you to maybe segment part of your land and maybe experiment with grapes or barley and hops.
Right, yeah.
He said guidance and a little bit of income to offset any loss. So, but he's definitely game to play. And so then I started thinking, how do we get a list? I mean, there's got to be a list somewhere of all the APR land, right? We've got the second most protected in the state, but who owns the APR land? And even though they own it and may not be actively farming it, if they leased it out, so let's just say hypothetically that wine, that grapes really do grow well here. And let's just say someone wanted to put a vineyard on APR land. They could do that, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's what it's there for. So I guess to find out where is all this APR land, who owns it, and are they willing to do it themselves or lease it out to somebody else?
Trying to think, I think that the land trust put out a map like that showing the APR and conservation land. Let me get in touch.
You know what? They do have a map. I use it primarily for the walking trails, but I think you're right. They may have the APR flagged on that. And that's, for those on the board, Dudley Conservation Land Trust. I don't know their website. It's pretty, I think it's like dclt.org. They have the maps. It's a private nonprofit. They do tremendous work in preserving and protecting a lot of the features in Dudley. But I thought that was interesting. Then I talked to him too. I said, well, if marijuana is legalized and everything, I mean, there's going to be a lot more money involved in growing that than hay.
Right. Right. No, I mean, it's funny because I met one of my customers at the bank is owns a restaurant, or actually it's a bakery restaurant in Worcester. And he had called me a few weeks ago because he was looking to purchase, he lives in Oxford, but he was looking to purchase some land because it's this whole farm to table kind of a thing, and he was looking that he would either, buy some land, to plant, trees to grow fruit, to grow these other things that's going to incorporate in his restaurants, and I just thought that was interesting. And when you mentioned that, maybe, one of these landowners or farmers, they may not be willing to sell it, but they might lease it out to, to folks and things like that. And that could be, another different, avenue.
Yeah. That's something that I had mentioned last week to Dominique. Mr. O'Keefe, who was one of the initial members on this board, he was involved in the farmers markets, and he said that there were a lot of young people interested in farming in the Worcester area that were looking to lease land, and they would come out this way. He passed away, and we never connected those dots. And Dominique said that there was someone at CMRPC who could help us connect those dots. So something. And just a side note, Webco, as you said, they're expanding, and they make, I mean, everybody knows Purell around the world, right? That's one of their products that I guess Johnson bought from them. But that's not where they're expanding. Agriculture is their expansion, which is, kind of a coincidence.
And they have Bay State Sciences there. I mean, they continue to grow, and let's give them what they need to grow. And I don't know, it makes good sense. Ellen, what about you? Anything from the public hearings kind of catch your attention, or?
I agree with Masha that, they were talking about the engineers. That seems pretty wasteful. I looked up, what it takes to grow grapes and hops. And so I've got some catalogs coming, and I guess springtime is the time where you've got to get your order in if you're going to grow hops. And there's different cultivars for different flavors.
Because you have a background in like soils and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Is your initial reaction, is it a pipe dream to grow hops, barley,
No.
grapes over
It
here?
sounds very easy. They say it's very easy. And grapes grow like crazy. We see them up in the trees, but they can be trained.
So we'll turn Dudley into the Napa Valley of
Wherever
kind
the
of a
interest
nip-mup
lies.
theme.
Yep.
Tourists, when they go to Sturbridge, they'll come over here, get their wine,
You
do their little tour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you're onto something.
Need 6 to 8 hours of sunshine and enough water, but not water.
And the soil type is the right type to grow here.
Yeah,
It'll be interesting to see
we'll see.
what this whole thing looks like at the end.
I agree.
See, it's like making sausage. It's an ugly process to wash, but it tastes pretty good at the end. All right, anybody else? Sure.
What are we expecting next from Dominique? What's the next step? for her?
Yeah, there was a timeline. I think there was going to be some sort of a follow-up like September. The main thing was to have most of their work done by the end of December. But I think the next big follow-up time for them was like in September. They were going to come in with some initial things.
Yep.
The only thing that they'll come in ahead of that is the map,
Yeah.
for our brochure.
Okay.
All right, so unless anybody wants to add anything else to the public hearing side, we will continue the public hearing to the next meeting, which I believe is August 16th. Well, next on the agenda, discuss Dudley Days. That was brought up at the last meeting. That was the whole idea of doing town-wide yard sales, and it's almost like a town sale on Memorial Day weekend. I think it'd be that Saturday so that it didn't actually interfere with the holiday on Monday. And Selectman Joseph was looking for the Economic Development Committee to take ownership of this, if we thought it was the right thing to do. My own personal opinion, I've seen townwide sales go great. A lot of people look forward to them, and it becomes an annual thing. But I'm not an event planner. Oh, man, it's got those limitations. I can't even plan a birthday party. So, I don't know. I think it's great, but I don't know what committee would actually take point to put this whole thing together. And what I don't want it to be is a distraction to our mission here
I agree.
of the 5-year plan. So, input. What do we think about Dudley Days and just in general?
I agree with you. I mean, I think that, you know, I mean, this is this is an event, and we need, so, you know, a committee of folks that are committed to just doing that, to getting, you know, the word out, the buzz out, promoting it, you know, via, you know, the website, social media, in the papers, you know, things like that. I mean, I've never been part of one, or, I mean, I just think, is it, you know, yard sales that you just have different, like, maps throughout the town where there's different folks that have either signed up. It could be as easy as that, but it's also very much dependent on the weather, and, you know, things of that nature. So, I mean, I agree with you, John. I mean, I think that, as much as I think it's a great idea, you know, and if, I mean, I know I'm like yourself, my limitations, I'm not very good at stuff like that either. And unless there's somebody on our committee that would want to take, you know, ownership and maybe the lead point, or may know other people in the community that may be interested in doing something like that and spearheading it, great. But I think it would be something that we wouldn't want to do as just a one-off and just see, you know, we'd want something that maybe that would become a yearly thing that people would look forward to. And in order to do that, I think you really have to do it right. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I do agree with you, and I think maybe we should spend more of our focus on the 5-year plan, trying to figure out, okay, where do we want Dudley to go? How do we get there? And how can we make it more attractive for, you know, our current businesses that are here, to make it easier for them to either expand or, you know, to continue to do business here and not want to move elsewhere, and to find locations and make it doable to attract new businesses to the town. So that's where I am.
So let's run with your idea. So the selectmen actually form a Dudley Days committee, separate committee, that they would, that's their sole purpose will be this annual event. Is there anybody on the Economic Development Committee that would want to be on that committee?
May not be.
All right.
Besides the yard sale, what else did he envision going on for the Dudley Days?
DCLT, they have their plant sale. Boy Scouts, they have their tag sale the week after. So he was thinking if you could get them all on one Saturday and have it be a big event.
Isn't there like a new recreation committee, or wasn't there a newly formed like recreation?
Is
I
there?
want to say committee.
Beach,
Yeah, see, and primarily for the beach,
primarily.
but that seems to be in line.
There might be a group to at least approach. I think it would be great if we could,
Okay.
we talked at one of our meetings about trying to get more of the town's people involved in different ways, and this could be a very good stepping stone into a little bit more community pride, if you will, or I think maybe approaching that group and see if they're a group that's functioning,
Yeah.
that might be willing to take on something like this as well. You know, I do like event planning, I'm not gonna lie. But I would do it separate, you know. I'd be willing to help out with something like that, but I'm not in a
Like as a
position right now to speak.
volunteer or whatever, yeah. I think a lot of us would volunteer to do different things, but
Right.
I don't want to own this.
No, I don't want to own it
Exactly.
either, yeah.
I think that's a great idea, though, involving if this recreation committee, would want to do, especially seeing that Selectman, who was it that brought it up?
Yes, Paul Joseph.
Selectman Joseph, he seemed very excited about it. So, I mean, I think that, you know, the good news is we'd have the selectmen's buy-in. And I think that if we could do that and then incorporate the recreation committee, I know I'd be more than happy to volunteer in some capacity, but I just, like you both
Yeah.
just said, I can't spearhead anything at the moment.
So what if I try to track down, see who's a part of the new recreation committee, and even just send them a letter asking them, you know, if they want to talk to us about it, and we'll give them a lowdown and see if Paul Joseph will come with me, and we'll
Yeah.
just go from there.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I'm just gonna send a letter to the selectmen's office saying, hey, we think it's a great idea. We don't have the manpower to own this event. Maybe have a number of personal volunteers that'll help out, but we're gonna approach the recreation committee, or maybe the selectmen can set up a Dudley Days committee.
I think that's the way to go about it.
It'd be great, I mean, if you had a representative from the library, if
Yeah.
you had a representative from the school district, if you
Exactly.
really want to make it a community event, but it seems like, yeah, I'd like to know more about the recreation committee, because that
Okay.
might be something,
Do you recall, John, on the website, seeing the recreation committee?
No, that's why,
Yeah.
I think if you look at it, I don't even think
So
there
I
is,
was just gonna
under
do-
the town departments, I don't even think there is one.
well, I remember there being, like, I remember driving through town seeing it, just only because my undergraduate degree is in recreation, parks and leisure services, but seeing like, a call to like join this type of a thing.
right,
And
right.
that's probably been 2 years now,
Okay.
maybe a year ago, but 2 years. So I just wondered if it got any momentum, or if it's just a small committee devoted to the beach, but maybe there's a group of people who want to try to do more, you know, as
Just-
a town.
And especially involving groups like the Boy Scouts, the
Yeah.
Girl Scouts.
Boys and Girls Club.
Boys and Girls,
Yeah.
Girls Club and things like that. You have a number of people that you could access. And if they got all involved, and, you know, I think it could probably spread pretty quick. You know, and I couldn't believe how serious people take yard sailing around here when I moved around. I had a yard sale one Saturday. I had people knocking on my door on Friday night wanting to get first looks.
Yeah.
I mean, and they were like, you know, professional negotiators. So I think people do love yard sales around here, so that might be a good community thing, so.
Yeah, we have, I'm sorry, Ellen.
I was just gonna say, for these groups, it's all for fundraising, you know. This is their big fundraiser,
Right,
like for DCLT and the Boy Scouts.
yeah.
I know there's another one that's before.
When I was originally talking to, you know, Paul about this, you know, it was, okay, so you want to charge to be listed in this brochure, right? And, you know, get a little bit of monies, you know, wouldn't it be great if you actually maybe took those monies, since it's Memorial Day weekend, and maybe split it between the veterans, you know, committee and the cemetery. But going back to recreation, there is no recreation. Now, we have a nice recreation tab that has all the recreational opportunities, but
Not a committee.
we don't,
Listed.
yeah, so I will take this as a follow-up to find out where we stand, you know, if there is an active recreation committee again, and see if they even want to come to our next meeting. Maybe get some advertising for themselves and what they're doing, if they need volunteers and workers, or, all right, so I'll take that as a follow-up.
And a lot of times when you see like Dudley Days, or, you know, you're talking about a community that has a lot of small town shops in a small area, you know, come on downtown kind of a thing, and, you know, old home days kind of a
Yeah.
feel, you know, and we're lacking that space
Yeah.
Right.
and identity, and I see where, you know, Selectman Joseph wants to help build that. I think that's great for a community,
Yeah.
but there's a couple things I think that need to cart before the horse, if you will.
Exactly.
When you think about it, the Strawberry Festival in June and the Apple Festival, both by the Grange, those are the big Dudley days right now. And they, if you've ever driven by Strawberry Festival, they garner a lot of activity. So in a sense, we do have Dudley days. As far as a
Valid, yep.
community coming together for an event.
And that's actually a good point, seeing that that's, I mean, the Strawberry Festival is what, the third Thursday of every June.
Mhm.
So we would be right before that, if that's when we were gonna be planning that, so I don't know if that would be too close to that big event that everybody looks forward to, or maybe that would be to our advantage, I'm not sure. seeing
Well,
that
it would
was-
have to be
That's
a
maybe-
different, totally different venue.
Yeah,
But maybe there's something about incorporating something out of that week.
yeah.
You know, like it's Dudley Days, and it's the culminating event is that
Strawberry Festival, yeah.
If you talk to people, I'm interested in putting my hand in there a little bit, so
All right.
I'll represent us. But I don't want to be the point person doing it
No.
all.
Next on the agenda.
I've got so many ideas. It's already thinking, but I don't want
Once
to
they
be
say
the main
yes, you
person.
move on.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, Barbara's not here. Let's put her name on the
That's right.
chairperson.
Oh, I'll see you tomorrow morning. I'll break the news to her. Oh, my
All right.
God. That's a great idea, though, to keep it like the week-long thing. I like that. See, we're already thinking about it. It's a good idea.
Careful, man.
I know, no,
Turn next.
believe me.
All right, next on the agenda, the brochure discussion. Sponsorship clarifications and update of text. So yesterday was the deadline. We posted it on the website. There are, at the end of the day, 3 companies that issued us $500 checks.
Oh.
All right, Webco,
Yeah.
Nichols, and Connor Insurance. So because there's only 3 of them, we have reserved that area, that back panel, or whatever that panel was, for sponsors. They will now each get 1/3 of that.
Perfect.
All right, and so they'll be actually able to get larger ad than what was
Great.
originally advertised. But we made that very clear that if, in the end, the space will be divided by the number of advertisers up to a maximum of 8. So with that $1,500, and we have $2,500, we've got $4,000,
Well, excellent.
right? The brochure, the quote was around 2,000.
Yeah.
So,
Great.
we may have to tap that, because we're going to probably engage someone with InDesign skills, that Nichols is familiar with as well, that can take the bull by the horn, and actually, as we make changes, we don't have to go to the printer, wait for them to get back to us.
Right.
And then, so give them the ability to mock it all up and do everything on our own. But, probably pay the person a couple $100 on the side to do that. Small enough, it doesn't have to go out to bid or anything like that. It's a change. I did meet with PJ and Lorraine, who has volunteered her time and effort from Nichols, who's their public relations group person. The one that did the draft of the text. She had a lot of questions, what are looking to accomplish. So I think in their mind, their team is really gonna try to dress it up a little, make it a little briefer, a little bit
Awesome.
more photo-ish.
Awesome.
And that's why giving them that InDesign capability and having them
What
the
is
ability to.
Lorraine's last name?
Martinelli.
Martinelli?
Yeah.
And it's something, I mean, she's associated through Nichols, it's something she's doing on her own.
Yeah.
But, we've got the connections out, that can be taken outside of the
Yeah.
college, but I think, she's coming back from vacation next week, so I think by the next meeting, we could have something really more helpful in
Excellent.
hand.
So then what I'll do is I'll take point on the sponsorship ads, knowing that the ad size is a little larger. I'll reach out and get the final draft of how people want their ads to look. I know Barbara, works with O'Connor, so she could probably just take that, but I'll take point on getting it all done by the next meeting. All right?
Thank you.
And then, if we set a goal, having this thing done by
Brochure.
September,
The brochure.
you don't think that's possible?
I would push it out another month at least.
Another month? You think October?
I would hope,
All right.
I don't know.
All right,
Yeah.
that's why. October?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right.
Then we will go out for some of that beer and wine.
Yeah, after that meeting, we'll post another meeting at one
Door to
of,
door and just pass
was
that
it
out.
I was gonna
Firebrand
say.
or something?
It's gonna be the best darn brochure this side of the,
That's right. All right, any more updates on the brochure? Any progress? All right.
But you're working on the map still?
Yeah,
Okay.
yep, and hopefully we'll get that from CMRPC by the time we get the InDesign files. Any new business? Anything that anybody would like to add, bring up? All right,
Nope.
seeing none. Upcoming event, our next meeting will be August 16th. Chip?
I think that got boosted up a week because this room wasn't available.
Sure it wasn't just a room change?
I don't think so. Let me go look.
I think our agenda,
It's posted out there.
yeah. Yeah, I know there was a conflict with the rooms, but I think we're good for the 16th. It's just, I think we're in that small room.
See, it has 2 days posted, the 7th and 21st.
And not the 16th.
What was? All right,
I'll find out for sure.
yeah, we'll
And
get
let
that
everybody know.
clarified.
Okay, yeah.
All right,
Okay.
we'll update everybody on the website. All right. Fred, what did you have for our next meeting? August 16th. Yeah, all right,
Can't go the week before, the week after, because it's planning board.
yep. All right, we will figure this out.
We'll see.
Right now, we'll keep it for the 16th, all right? And it's probably gonna be in the back room, not the main room here.
Okay.
All right. Chair, entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Marcia made the motion.
I'll second it.
No one seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
See you next one.
All right, see you next
Thanks,
one.
Fred.
All right, good to